Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 o'clock, time for us to begin our meeting.
Thank you.
This is the replacement or special call session of what would have been held earlier today at noon as our workshop, our work session for the Commission, the Board of Commissioners. And tonight's special call meeting is also a public hearing. It will be based on the proposed ordinance 24-25, and we will hear the reading of that momentarily. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Goble.
Here.
Commissioner Newby.
Here.
Commissioner Brewer.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Mayor Blythe.
Here, thank you. Let me mention a couple of things before we begin the actual hearing. The first item will be a presentation by Counsel Worley. Let me mention these things for our operation tonight. And I say this very seriously, although it comes out always as funny. I operate on one basic principle, and that's that principle that Aretha Franklin made so popular, the RESPECT. We will.
Thank you. Okay.
We will respect one another in this chamber tonight. Does not mean we will agree with each other, but we will respect one another here. I think everyone who wants to speak was made aware as you entered that you would have to sign in. That's so that we can know who wants to speak and make sure that those who want to will be able to. There will not be just a jump up and run to the podium. Only those who are listed who signed in will be permitted to speak. This is a public hearing for the purpose of developing findings of fact, establishing findings of fact regarding the matter that is before us, because no findings of fact were presented from the Planning and Zoning Commission's hearing. We will establish those tonight. However, for those who speak, your limit is 5 minutes. That's a standard for our meetings. One time at the podium only. In other words, you cannot come back after you have spoken for a max of 5 minutes. There is a clock. Where is that, Lisa, Madam Clerk?
Right over here.
We're going to use the one here. Yes, thank you. I will reserve the right, after what I consider to be a sufficient amount of the same information. I think you'll understand what that means. We will not have everybody saying the exact same thing. Please be aware that I have a plethora of the same email texts. I've always wanted to use that word. I've got a plethora.
Define that, please.
That means a whole bunch.
There's a whole bunch right here.
In
Mayor.
fact,
They're
Clerk
all
has,
printed for the record.
is that what this is, Lisa?
Yes, they're in your packet too. Yes.
So just be aware that I have those. I have received those if you sent one. I appreciate the interest and the concern, of course. However, you should know that I really do have, and these commissioners do have, the ability to consider the matter that is before us in the right light without being bombarded. This is not a conversation, or it is not a question and answer period. The Board of Commissioners will not respond to comments. They may have questions for counsel or for the Director of Planning and Zoning, but there will not be a conversation between the commissioners and those who make presentations from the audience. Know that the record of the prior hearing, the hearing with Planning and Zoning, is made a part of the record for today's hearing here. So those things that were presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have access to, and will be placed with those findings of fact that we receive tonight, or that we accumulate tonight, or that we form tonight, will be placed all in the same packet for our consideration. This is the first reading of the proposed ordinance 24-25. Therefore, there will be no voting tonight. It will be for listening purposes only. With that in mind, Madam Clerk, what do we do here first? Do we have the presentation first or read the ordinance?
I'm going to go ahead and read the
Title.
ordinance.
All right. We have before us ordinance 24-25, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Richmond, Kentucky, changing the zoning classification for property on Old Town Branch Road and Carlton Lane owned by Hampton 210 LLC located within city limits.
Thank you. Whereas Hampton 210 LLC, the owners of the property hereinafter described as requested that the property at Old Town Branch and Congleton Lane, being the same property as more fully described below, be rezoned from agriculture to R1C and R2. The property in question in the city's boundaries is urban in character and is suitable for further development for urban purposes. And whereas the Richmond Planning and Zoning Commission on August 21st, 2021 conducted a public hearing so to be able to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners as to approve or deny the zone change. And whereas at the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted on the issue, resulted in a tie, thusly forwarding the issue to the City Commission with no recommendation. And whereas the Board of Commissioners shall now hold a public hearing during the first reading for this ordinance so as to make a findings of fact and determine approval or deny of said zone change. Now therefore be it ordained that Section 1, the property to which this ordinance applies consists of 207.328 acres. The tract is recorded by deed book 838, page 219. A more particular description of the said lots appear as exhibits attached to this ordinance and herein incorporated as set forth in full. The property is hereby rezoned from agriculture to R1C and R2 with the boundary so to request the application of Hampton 210 LLC. This ordinance shall become effective immediately upon enactment following second reading and publication in accordance with the provisions of applicable Kentucky law.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That's ordinance 24-25. May we have a motion, please, to bring to the floor for discussion?
I move. Second.
All right, Commissioner Newby, Commissioner Brewer. We'll begin by hearing from
The
council.
Yep, council.
Mr. Worley, please. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Preston Worley for the record on behalf of the applicant, Hampton 210 LLC, which is a subsidiary company of Lone Tree, a Utah-based national home builder that is also a fairly large property owner here in Madison County. So tonight, my presentation is really a three-part presentation that I'll keep as absolutely brief as possible. In that presentation, you'll hear obviously from me. You'll hear from Mr. Jameis O'Brien and Ms. Jenny Nielsen, who are the principals of Lone Tree, who've joined us here tonight from Utah. And then you'll hear from Mr. Jihad Halani from Vision Engineering, as a local engineering company that has done a traffic study that I think you'll find to be very informative. Basically, tonight, what we're asking you for is a zone, only a zone. Now, we're going to show you a conceptual plan of what we believe is the best build-out of the property. But I want you to keep in mind that in giving this a zone, when you vote in a couple of weeks, you are only giving it that next step, that we think that is an appropriate zone for this piece of property. That will then have to go back to your planning commission for development plans, preliminary plats, final plats. And so a lot of the concerns that we'll hear tonight, a lot of the issues we'll talk about tonight, will, if you give it an appropriate zone, will be fettered out by your planning commission and engineers over several months to several years. So I want to keep that in mind, that any authorization of a zone does not mean that tomorrow shovels are going in the ground and things are building. We answer these questions over time. But tonight, I think we can show you that these questions can be answered and concerns alleviated. And I'll discuss a little bit in preliminary what I believe you'll hear from some of the concerns. And there's a lot of people in the room. Obviously, we've got a standing room only here. And there's a lot of folks that live just on the outskirts in the county, live in West Richmond, that have very valid concerns. And we've had these conversations with the Planning Commission, and I think what you'll see tonight is that these concerns are capable of being handled through state highway traffic engineering plans, through phasing of the development, through working through the same concerns that your Planning Commission has already raised and is authorized and is their jurisdiction to handle. So that's all by way of preface with that. Currently, the property is zoned agriculture. This property was annexed into the city many, many years ago. And the legal standard for annexation is that this body has determined that it's urban in nature and ready for development. So when that was done, at that time, it was determined to be ready for development. The market now has come along and come up with a viable use and is asking you for a zone that then can actually cause that development. So agriculture is inherently inappropriate inside the city limits. This is the concept that we've shown here that we want to move forward with. This is 455 units split between R1C detached single-family development and townhouse development that would be offered, intended for single-family home ownership, but that would be single-family attached. So I want to make clear, when we say R2, and I think this is a threshold issue for tonight, this is not duplexes. Your ordinance, while R2 says duplexes, also authorizes townhouses, which is 3 or more units, independent units attached by a joint wall. And I'm going to show you an example of what Lone Tree does in other communities with their townhouses. And then Mr. O'Brien is going to talk to you about why that not only makes this affordable, but also has a market in your community. And I think the big thing here is to keep in mind, R1C development are smaller lots, smaller homes. The townhomes, obviously because of the little bit more dense development, are smaller, more affordable. And what we're going for here is a home ownership model that is affordable to middle income people in Madison County. And that's something that we're missing in Madison County, and something that we certainly need. And I would put to you, I've stood before this body many, many times with zone changes. And I have asked you all to approve, and often you have, very dense developments. Developments with apartment complexes, with very dense duplex complexes. And in those times, I believe those were all appropriate. That would not be appropriate here. A less dense single-family and mixed-family development is what you need here. And Commissioner Brewer, I believe about 2 months ago, I was in front of you for an apartment complex that you all approved, and you said to me, I wish you could bring some more single-family. And did I not say,
Yeah.
if you'll give me a couple months,
Yes.
I think I'll be back. Yeah. So, in any zone change, what you look to is agreement with your comprehensive plan. And what I'd like you to keep in mind tonight as you listen to all of the facts is, one, there are 2 ways to justify zone change: that your current zoning is not appropriate and the proposed zoning is more appropriate. And I'll put you that is the case because agriculture zoning is inherently inappropriate in an urban setting. This is a very, very low-dense single-family development. This would be the least dense development that you could possibly have, because even an R1A development would allow for more units than this property is being proposed. This developer is agreeing to cap its density at half of what the requested zoning would ask, and about 2/3 of what a step-down zoning would be. So I would put to you that it's more appropriate because it's compatible with the area, it provides the housing that you need, and agriculture is not appropriate. But the next step of agreement with the comprehensive plan is, does it meet your goals and objectives? And I put to you that Goal 3, Objective 5, increase homeownership rates while providing safe and affordable housing options for all residents. Objective 6, allow for the establishment of diverse housing types, including options for seniors, students, families, and young professionals. And I think you're going to hear from Mr. O'Brien their model of who they're targeting here. That first home, that last home, that transition home. Those are the people that they're looking to serve here, and that's your objective number 6. And then finally, you look at your future land use map, which calls for, does this have a pointer? There we go. Which calls for single-family residential housing for this property, which is what you're being offered. Before I'm going to ask Jameis to start making his way up, this is the designs of Lone Tree, the type of housing that they build. This would be an example of a concept streetscape that they would build. You see the modest size or moderate sized single-family homes in a row there. That's the dimensions in a typical home that they would build and what they're trying to offer here. There's another example. And then let's talk about the townhouses. This is one of the townhouses they have in another market. I think you can see a Child's Bicycle right there. This is an actual neighborhood that they've built, and this is another that they've built. So you can see this is not a duplex concept. These are intended to be single-family dwellings. They are just they're attached and not detached. All right, we'll come back to that. IT, could you pull up the second presentation for me? And Jameis, if you'd come up. So what I want Jameis to do for you is to talk a little bit about Lone Tree, about their mission, their model, what they're trying to do here, and then he's going to discuss a little bit of the housing needs that you all are well aware of throughout Kentucky, but mainly Madison County, and then why R1C makes sense and R2 makes sense and not that R1A zoning. And it all comes down to R1C and R2 are more affordable to build by a lot. And then those costs, that savings gets passed on to a homeowner, and so they're more affordable to own. So, Jameis, that's forward.
Thanks, Preston. All right, here we go. I have 7 slides for you, and I've numbered them so you can count, and then you'll know when I'll be done. So, all right, here we go. So, Lone Tree National Home Builder. About 5 years ago, we've been builders and developers for about 20 years. National, North and South America. About 5 years ago, we decided we were going to try to attack affordable housing across the United States of America. It's a big problem. I'm just going to go quick here. Zillow, 4.5 million homes short, United States of America. 75% of those are moderate to low income, either rentals or builds. Harvard does a housing study every year. The ongoing affordable housing crisis in the United States of America. This isn't just a Kentucky or a Madison County problem or Richmond problem. This is everywhere. Just reading the sentence here, and this is from HUD, right? The Housing Authority of the U.S. government. Zoning ordinances can be a hindrance to affordable housing development. How has your community decided to use zoning ordinances to increase, and I skip, affordable housing? Zoning matters for affordable housing. Affordable housing in Kentucky, we're just going to kind of skinny it down here. So for those of you that don't know, kyhousing.org is a Kentucky resource. They've recently released their reports. They are looking at all 120 counties inside of Kentucky, and they have quantified the shortage and the housing gap. This one's in 2024, and then they've done a 5-year look ahead. So across the state of Kentucky, 206,000 homes short. In 2029, they project that that number will have grown to 287,000 homes. If you're interested in your own city or county, they have, based on the map, you click on the map, it's a cool thing. And we all feel, you guys all feel this, right? The affordable housing, maybe a realtor will get up here a little bit in a little while and talk to you about affordable housing here. 2,500 homes, this is 2024. Kentucky housing supply gap in 2029 in Madison County, they anticipate it being 6,700 homes. If you look down at the bottom on my presentation sometime later, they have the median income statistics. And if you dig into it, 2/3 of that number is moderate to low income. The people who are not here tonight, but they're working at the restaurants, they're going to school, they're home with their kids, getting them ready, getting their homework done, getting ready to go. Now, I don't bring this up to tell you guys something you don't already know. I know this has been a topic in your community for some time. It's in the news in Lexington, it's in the news here, it's in the news nationally, it's on the presidential debate. So maybe I can just kind of neck this down into why we're asking for R1C and R2. So this is off of the KY Housing website in blue. They talk about stakeholders. This is their media packet that they're trying to get out to the newspapers and the media so that they can raise the alarm, hey, affordable housing is a problem. We already know that. So they talk about bringing stakeholders together, because affordable housing across the country is not, there's not one single person or entity that's responsible for it. It's actually a problem, and we need unity, and we need people to come together to fix it. It's not one group that can just fix it. On the right-hand side of the slide, I have some of these key stakeholders listed for you, and I'll talk just a touch about them. The developers across the United States of America. Developers make the most money building what we call move-up homes. It's your second-time home. It's a semi-custom home. There's not a shortage as much of the semi-custom homes because that's where developers make their most money. The other people who build real estate are investors, and they build multifamily because they want rentals, right? And what it's created across America is what they call the missing middle. The missing middle, which is the affordable, because the developers don't make much money doing those and the investors have no incentive to do it. And so you don't have a bunch of developers that are attacking this problem. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. Okay, so you need a developer that is attacking the problem the same as everyone else is. The contractor, these are not the most profitable homes. I'm going to put our contractor that we selected to help us here in Richmond on the spot. Mike, will you stand up? Mike Conley. They've built homes in the Richmond area for 20 plus years. They built a great home. They built the move-up homes, the semi-custom homes. They have agreed to cut their margins on their homes for the affordables so that they can help bring affordable to Richmond. You need them as a stakeholder to come in here and help you accomplish and solve this problem. The suppliers, we have been working with the suppliers and the subcontractors to also get volume and quantity discounts so that you can have affordable. It's not you actually, it's the people that need a home, right? It's them. So to help them. And then I have the city with the question mark, because this is where we're at tonight. Because we've brought the stakeholders that can make affordable possible in Richmond here right now, and they've been working on this. We've already got contracts with them. We've been working on this for quite some time, okay? So let's talk about the city. So I want to show you, Preston showed you this. This is our plan. Let's see, is this the little laser pointer? Can you guys see that? Oh, look at that. So you can just tell these are the single-family homes right here, home on a single lot, and then you can see the townhomes, right? And there's townhomes over here, and then single-family homes. All right, just give you kind of context. Jenny will talk to you about some of the other stuff we got. So this concept shows 455 homes between the two. Not buildings, homes, right? I just wanted to show you really quick the type of product we're suggesting. Sometimes affordable is misconstrued, right? And we think of, bad, ugly homes that we don't want. These are quality homes. We're doing these all over. And because of the stakeholders, we're able to offer these. I just got an appraisal back today from a local appraiser on this townhome over here in the mid 200,000s. There's not much available, brand new construction for families, 3-bed, 2-bath for mid 200,000s. And we have other options that are in the low 200s. And so it's a good neighborhood, good quality construction from good contractors, good supplies. This isn't low income. This is affordable. Let me tell you why we're asking for R1C and R2. So this is the development ordinance in your own code, which you guys have read and I've read a bunch. So right here on that 50, R1C, a lot inside of R1C requires 50 foot of frontage road, 50 feet. If you look over at R1A, it requires 75 feet. So the lot that your house sits on is that wide. So that represents more costs for the future home builders or for the future home buyers. So I did a little bit of an analysis for you. Now this is just to prove a point. We didn't go out and get bids, but we have a pretty good idea. But let me give you an example. So R1A, you have 70 feet wide right here by whatever depth you have, but 70 foot wide, which means you need a sidewalk at $5 a square foot times 280 square feet, which is a 4-foot wide sidewalk times 70, $1,400. That's what the homeowner pays for. If you come over to R1C, the sidewalk, same $5 a square foot, but instead of 70 feet, it's 50 feet. And so the homeowner saves $400. If you come over to the townhomes, in R2, you can do a 60-foot wide lot divided by 2 units equals 30 feet. Their sidewalk costs them $600. You see that? So there's all these things that add up across the front here. You have the sidewalk, curb and gutter, the asphalt, they pay for that, sewer, water, electrical, and then of course the land underneath. And so we broke down the cost here so that you can see a person buying a townhome, it costs them it costs them $20,000 less for that property to be developed. And that savings goes to them and makes the home affordable. Now, I know you guys know this. We know it. But in order to provide affordable, we need the city to consider the zoning we're requesting and understand why we're requesting it. That's why. It's not for us. It's not so we can make more money. If we want to make more money, we'd build bigger, fancier houses. This is so you can attack the affordable, but still have nice homes in your neighborhood or in your city. Now, on this slide, I just want to, as when we were with planning and zoning, one of the things that came up that is a valid concern that we've looked at is traffic. We've heard about traffic going under the freeway, the 1 lane. We've heard about other things. So I just wanted to show you a part of the analysis we did early on when we were considering traffic. So this is our current plan here, and then I'm going to click this. These are 2 R1A plans that were created. And this is kind of like the subdivision you guys already have over at Magnolia Point. They're bigger lots and bigger homes. If we develop that and we zone it R1A and do lots of that size, it will end up being, again, estimate, this is just kind of a concept on paper, but roughly 490 homes. Knowing that, and I commit to you, we will cap our development and we will give you less density on this than we would as if we did a development like Magnolia Point. Magnolia Point's a great development, but do you need more of that? Is that where your pain point is? That's based on who we've talked to and what we've observed in your community, you need affordable. Now, last slide, you can't see it because it's behind the timer, but this is slide number 7. This is really what the points I wanted to hit with you today. R1C and R2 zoning, I'm just going to read them. You're not supposed to read your presentations. You learned that in like 3rd grade, but I'm going to do it anyways. 455 homes with a density cap. We would accept that as a condition that allows similar to less traffic than R1A at 490 homes. Again, knowing that it's urban in nature and that it needs zoned something, we would just ask that you'd consider a proposal and realize this isn't a density play by a developer, by a greedy developer. It's really well intended to help the city with something that's meaningful and important to them. Second bullet point, R1C and R2 provide a lower home cost starting in the low 200s to those who buy the homes. We're working hard at getting something below 200. I don't know if it's achievable. By the time this goes, we don't know what prices are going to be on materials and labor and things. But we know that that's important. In one of our subdivisions, only one, have we achieved a home that's less than 200,000. It's become very difficult. Third bullet point, R1C and R2 zoning, much needed supply of affordable housing to Richmond. And the reason I bring that up is this: to take the pressure off of rising prices. It's a supply and demand issue. It's a supply and demand issue. So if there's plenty of rentals, rents will go down. If there's plenty of homes for sale, sales prices will go down. I don't know if the realtor from KW will address this, but there's an absorption rate that's known amongst the realtors. If you have 6 months of inventory in your real estate pipeline, homes are stable. When you only have 3 months or 2 months, prices go up. Same thing with your rentals. If you have more than 6 months, prices go down. And so supply and demand. So you need more homes. And then my last thing is I appreciate the time. Mayor, I appreciate the RESPECT. So I appreciate it. And then if there's any questions, we're happy to field those. Thanks, Preston.
Thank you, Jameis. And I know a lot of that's very technical, and Jameis wanted to take some time to talk with you guys, but I think it's important for you all to get to know the folks that are wanting to develop in our community and wanting to bring something to our community, and then to understand their logic and their why. I think I do a pretty good job with my presentations up here, but sometimes the guy that's actually putting the pen to paper and the numbers and coming up with the idea is better to share that. If we could go back to my original presentation. This letter is between Jenny Nielsen was a part of putting this together. And Jenny, you're welcome to come up and speak to it if you'd like. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, come on up. We want to show you one thing on here, and there is a cemetery on the property, and there are some historic cabins on the property. And again, to show you the type of people that you're dealing with, obviously any development we want to respect a cemetery. They've gone above and beyond to work with the families, the descendants, about what they would like to see done. And then they've worked with our historical society about moving those cabins to park places in Richmond. So Jenny, just talk very briefly, if you don't mind, about the work you all have done. Again, so you all can get to know these folks a little better.
Yes, thank you. Could we go back to the slide that shows the concept? Clear, right, there you go. Okay, I will be super brief because I realize, I agree with Jameis. The purpose of this is really to focus on what our intent is, and that's the affordable housing. But just to kind of illustrate a little bit more, if you see all of the outside gray around that, one of the benefits of pulling this in and allowing more open space is to create buffer between this development and everyone around us. It's also to allow for more open space and park space for the residents, because they don't have as big a yards, which a lot of times they don't really care about, but they do still need a really livable area. But this also affords us the opportunity to create what you'll see, those kind of, you want to point for me, like the parks. So we've got a park with trails there on the side, and then a park, the other one down here, and that's the one right there that Preston's referring to is that we have left open space in a public park for a cemetery, and then I'll talk about the cabins in just a second. There was a family that recently was able to discover their ancestors' headstones on our property, and once they found that out, we reached out to the Historical Society, and she helped us to locate those, and then she had contact with the family, it's the Clark family, and then was our agent in kind of representing us and on both sides. And so she's been able to communicate with them their wishes to the cemetery, and that's that letter that Preston has at the end of this. And they responded kindly and kind of laid out what they would like done with the cemetery, which we're very happy to comply with. And so those headstones will be left where they are. They'll be restored professionally. There'll be a plaque added and a fenced off around just the cemetery itself. And then we went ahead and wanted to provide ample open space and park all the way around the cemetery with a rocking trail so that that family, along with the community, will have access to that at any time. We understand that anything historical with Kentucky is very unique in nature to our country, and we love the opportunity to leave that in the community for not only the descendants, but for the community to enjoy. So like referenced above, there's also farther up, kind of where you see the square, there were discovered 2 historical cabins on our property. One has been dated into the late 1700s and the other the early 1800s. And it was really uniquely built, and a home was built over top of both of them, which actually preserved them very well. And so with the help of Sharon Graves, the Historical Society director, she also contacted, I'm blanking on his name right now, Robert, do you remember his last name? Roberts is his last name. Byron, yes, Byron Roberts, thank you. Does this, he's licensed and bonded, and he does this for a living. He will come and disassemble both of those cabins carefully and document them. Sharon has already arranged for the storage of the older cabin, the 1700s cabin, somewhere within the city until it's ready to be rebuilt and located on the new sports park that will be built up on the north end of Goggins Lane. So it'll be moved there with a permanent home there. The other cabin we will also restore in some place we haven't decided where yet, whether we leave it there or move it out to a more appropriate location on the property so that it can be enjoyed and viewed. But I tell you all this just so that you guys can understand that we love the culture and the history that is connected here in Richmond along with our country's history. And we want to be able to be a player in that as much as we can to restore that and so that it's honored the way that it should be honored. And so, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. So I think that's important for you all to see that this project has been very well thought out, even in its infancy, long before it goes back to the development plan stages with full engineering. I think you can see the level of thought that has gone into this, and I think the conscientiousness that these property owners have while they may live out of town, they're very respectful of our community and this land. So I think that's good to see. And so normally in these presentations about a zone change, I would talk to you about what we want to do, introduce you to the folks, and I've already told you why we think it's in agreement with the comprehensive plan. And I think each and every one of you would agree that a affordable range, single family project is exactly what we want. And it's exactly what we would normally, without blinking an eye, say, let's do that and send this back to the Planning Commission to start their work on. But you're going to hear from a lot of folks in this room tonight, and when we will acknowledge that their number one concern that they raise is a real one, traffic. We know that the folks that live here will head back up Hampton Way to Barnes Mill, and that section of Barnes Mill is already very difficult. Now, when you talk to the state highway traffic engineer, he will tell you that road has ample capacity for more. However, he will acknowledge, we're all traffic engineers now. However, he will acknowledge that there's a movement problem there. And so that's why I'm going to bring Mr. Halani up to talk about his traffic study to show you, and when you see these numbers, it will illustrate better that the problem is there and will be there regardless of this development. This development will not materially impair that problem till way down in its phasing. And in that time period, we anticipate that the state is going to make significant improvements to Barnes Mill Road. Mr. Halani will get into that in more detail, but all by way of saying, every zone change, there are difficulties. Traffic is usually one of the major difficulties, and this project is acknowledging, both in its density capping and its ability to phase, that traffic can be managed and mitigated. And as we also know, when the state highway traffic engineers know that development is coming somewhere that they're already looking at, they're more inclined to make those moves high priority. But you'll see in just a bit how much priority there is. So before we talk about traffic, because we do acknowledge that there's traffic, that's a concern, I would stop here to say that absent that very real concern, you have something that is 100% in agreement with your comprehensive plan. You have something that is a good thing for the community. You have something this community needs. And you have something that through the development plan phase can mitigate, alleviate, and erase the traffic concerns over time. So with that, if Mr. Halani would come up and go through the traffic numbers, then we'll talk about that. And I know the jeering and the booing I can understand. I do this all over. Every county in central Kentucky. I even serve as a decision maker in Fayette County, as you all know. I've never seen a room at a zone change that the people there were in favor. It's because change is difficult, and we all got a lot of questions and concerns. So I respect that. But Jihad.
Yes, sir. For the record, my name is Jihad Halani with Vision Engineering.
Sorry, Jihad, I got it. For the record, this is the full traffic study. It's 112 pages long. Each of you have the executive summary that Mr. Halani is going to go through. And if our IT folks could pull up that traffic study onto the screen.
Is this the way it changed?
That one right there.
Okay.
But I think we're just going to have to get him to scroll through it because it's not a presentation. Mayor, would you prefer we wait for Commissioner Brewer or move forward? Looks like he needed to step out.
It'll just be a couple of minutes. Thank you for asking.
So we move forward.
Wait just a second.
Okay, sure.
It should be.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
While we work this up, Mr. Halani is going to be going through a lot of numbers relative to specific intersections. And if you'll look in the back of the packet, there is a map that has those intersections numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, if you're more of a visual person, and that helps you follow along. Not that one. That's
Yes,
it.
that's it. Thank you.
I don't know if you can scroll down.
Yeah, okay. All right, so, sorry, we'll wait. No.
You start. Yeah, he's gonna stand a little bit.
Oh, okay. As as discussed earlier, that basically we're proposing 455 lots, and they are clustered kind of into the site, and then with a green space around it to kind of buffer it from the neighbor. So the way we approach this project is that we anticipate it's going to be phased into 3 phases. Phase number one will be complete by 2030. We anticipate that we're going to have 80 single-family lot and 65 townhouses. And in year 2035, phase 2 will be complete with additional, for a total of 160 single-family and 135 townhouses. And in 2040, we will have 2040 single-family and 215 townhouses for a total for 455. And the reason we came up with 2030, assuming this proposal get as approved, then we have to come back to planning and zoning for phase 1, and where we show the lot configuration, we show our grading, our drainage, and all how we meet the subdivision regulation. And then after that, it goes into construction. After construction is complete, it's going to basically final record plat, and the builder will start building home on these lots. So that's why we feel like there's a gap between 2024 to 2030. And on the second table below, it's by 2030, when we have completed 80 single-family home and 65 townhouses, we did trip generation based on the ITE manual. And this is the Institute of Traffic Engineer, which is basically they've done study all over the country, and they came up with a traffic ratio for the AM peak hour and the PM peak hours, how many trips will be entering into the subdivision, how many trips leaving the subdivision, and it's shown into that table. And then also the table below, at 2035, also it's the same concept, basically following the same manual, to how many trips is going to be generated in 2030. And then that follows the second page about in year 2040, where we have a total of 240 single-family and 215 townhouses. So what we did is that we look into multiple intersections along Barnesville Road. We look okay, perfect. We look into multiple of intersection. We look at Goggins Lane during AM peak hours and PM peak hours. We looked at Frankie Drive and Barnesville Road. We look into Hampton Way and also Amberley, and the last one, it will be basically along that Barnesville Road corridor. And we divided to what existing traffic right now and what's going to be in 2030. And what's going to be in 2030 is going to be basically our development and what's going to be growth in traffic along that corridor. And that growth of traffic is going to be driven with the school is getting built. Other development that has been approved by the Planning Commission is going to be on that corridor. And we compare this number with whatever Transportation Cabinet has done into that area for proposed improvement along the interstate, the ramp area, and also Barnesville Road. And in 2030, Transportation Cabinet has a plan they anticipate based on the 6-year plan to be complete by 2030. So, but we said, okay, things may not line up totally with the Transportation Cabinet. Let's assume there's no improvement has been done by the Transportation Cabinet in 2030. And what you see on the right side, this is the AM peak hour under column development year 2030, which will be that's kind of hard to see it. Yeah, you see this is 2030, where there's no development, no improvement by Transportation Cabinet, and we have phase one totally complete. 2035, we anticipate the transportation cabinet has done improvement along Barnes Mill Road, and also we anticipate the transportation cabinet has done dual left lane on Groggins Lane, and in 2040, it's basically the same improvement has been done in 2035 that the transportation cabinet completed by 2035. So, and this table represent the peak hours for the AM. AM peak hour is not critical in our case, and the reason is that PM peak hour was more pronounced than AM. So I would go through that table. It has too much number, I guess. I don't know how to fix it. Okay, so if we go briefly on that, that would be page 3 on your package. So looking at the table for the existing traffic, we see if this is 2024, when you see the intersection over here and you see that number next to it, that represents the overall intersection level of service. And the level of service is basically A, it's very good, it's like school grade, and F is failing. And looking at this level of service for that intersection for Groggins Lane, it has at 47 seconds of delay. The number represents how much there is delay, and the letter is basically the performance of that intersection, which is level service of D. And mostly it's driven by that movement, which is the level of service of F. So somebody coming on the eastbound of Barnes Mill Lane. So there's a lot of delay over there. So assuming that's basically the worst intersection along that corridor, and assuming we don't do any improvement, and within 5 years or 6 years the project is complete, there's a growth, the impact that we're showing, there's impact, it goes from 47 seconds to 49 seconds, but it's kind of minimum impact. But if you look at the performance when the transportation cabinet installed the improvement, which is, we'll go through it briefly, is having dual left turn lane on Groggins Lane. As you can see, the performance went extremely better from delay of 154 seconds to delay of 27 seconds, and this is due of dual left turn lane. And then also, if we go a little bit on Hampton, oh, I cannot get it. Okay, we can look on Frankie Drive, for example. Frankie Drive improvement no improvement has been done in 2030, as we discussed. In 2035, we assume transportation cabinet is going to install what we call U-turn. And basically they're going to have a median along Barnes Mill Road and force the traffic to go a certain distance and make a U-turn. So there's not going to be, so it will be a raised median, and we can go into an exhibit that transportation cabinet has shown what they see along Barnes Mill Road after this improvement is complete. You can see there's a big improvement going from level of service of B with 20 seconds of delay to level service of B with 13 seconds of delay as the whole entire intersection. So that's how we kind of basically did our phasing to kind of line up with whatever the state phasing is going to be and what improvement is going to be anticipating along that corridor.
So, Jihad, before you move on to the improvements, what I think is most important to point out at this stage of the analysis is taking into account all the development that has been approved and is anticipated right now, and this development, phase one, there is no material difference in the problems on Barnes Mill Road. They are there, they will be there, they will not be worse. They will be the same. You don't start looking at potential problems until you get to the later phases of the project, 35 and 40, and that's when we anticipate that the State Highway Department will make their improvements. Very important to keep in mind, each phase of a development has to be approved by the Planning Commission at that time. So, if a zone change is given to this property, we have to go back to the Planning Commission for a development plan. We have to show the Planning Commission at that time that this traffic shows a safe development can be built there. If the next phase we come forward and those improvements have not been made and the Planning Commission is not satisfied that the traffic can handle more there, they can say, not yet, you're not ready yet. And so, and that is each and every phase, and then you may break it down to more than one phase for that purpose. So I think that's what is important to keep in mind. And at each phase, the Planning Commission can also ask us, we need you to update this. There may have been more development in the community. There may have been more improvements we didn't know that the state was going to do. So I think that's what's really important to keep in mind. That first phase, yeah, that's a tough road to drive. It's going to be a tough road to drive. This development doesn't make it worse. It's as this development phases out that we need those improvements from the state, and the Planning Commission gets to have it be the gatekeeper of that. And so now if you talk about the improvements that we anticipate the state making that are in the 6-year highway traffic plan that are going to alleviate any problems that may be.
And then, yes, thank you, Preston. Just to follow up, what we're calling phase 1 is 80 single-family lot and 65 townhouses. That's what we are calling as phase 1. Just going into the improvements that the Transportation Cabinet basically proposing along the corridor. So this one here is at Groggins Lane and the Barnesmill Roads. I anticipate to have dual left, and they're calling it as basically short-term solution. And that's how we model it as short-term solution, because the state has as a long term, it may not happen, or may happen, is to have a roundabout in that location, but it was recommended for short-term solution as dual left, and that's how we approach it. And then the improvement along Barnesmill Road, as you can see on top of this on this page, it's written a priority. It's considered as a high, and was anticipating how much it's going to be costing, and then the project. And then that's how they envision the improvement along Barnesmill Road. That street over here will be Hampton Way, and that this is Barnesmill Road is going to be basically, there is going to be a raised median to prevent left turn into Hampton Way. And then traffic will be forced to come all the way down, I'm assuming, to a signal or to kind of U-turn median that kind of rotate like that and then come back into Hampton Way. And these are the improvements that the state envision, and based on our analysis and the state analysis, they're going to make significant improvement in delay, into movement of traffic, and making the corridor definitely safer than what would be. So also going back into the state, so the state has published a 6-year plan. It shows basically these two projects that has been basically into their 6-year plan for the Barnesmill Road improvement as well as the ramp along I-75 and Barnesmill. And the ramp on I-75 and Barnesmill is going to be similar to basically that shape. It's in Lexington on Winchester Road and New Circle Road, similar concept. And that will be how the state envision. Basically, that will be Barnesmill Road over here. This will be kind of basically the ramp coming to a single point. And the advantage of a single point, you minimize the signal here and the signal here and delays. So basically all this, you maximize your green time for all the movement. And that's how they envision to have this improvement for the ramp and I-75. And then last thing I want to talk about is on the single lane bridge. On the single lane bridge, basically, we did an analysis on the single bridge lane. The way it is right now, basically, it's a 1-lane bridge, approximately the length of it plus or minus 125 feet. And it has a good visibility, but there's delay sometimes. Sometimes the delay, we model it basically to be during existing condition, approximately 25 seconds of delay for somebody to stop and for a car to pass in at less than 5 miles per hour. And sometimes the queue in that at the PM, it reached to 3-4 cars. Sometimes the queue into Old Town Branch. With the developments that we're proposing, the delay is going to go from 25 seconds in average to 32 seconds. And then the stacking is going to go from 3-4 cars into basically 5-6 cars. But this analysis is done assuming a full build-out of the subdivision in 2040, assuming not phase 1 or phase 2, will be the full build-out. So going from an average delay of 25 seconds to an average delay of 32 seconds, and the stacking 3 to 4 cars to 5-6 cars. And this is also, do you want to talk?
The last slide for Mr. Halani was this one that you originally pulled up there.
And that slide that we're going to show is basically, it shows what has been approved by the Senate as for budgeting purpose for Barnes Mill Road and I-75 ramp. So basically, these are the funds has been basically committed. There's 1.7 million of design, and then also there's right-of-way acquisition of almost $1 million and utility relocation of 1.6 million. This has been placed into the budget that was complete in April of 2024.
And we bring that up for the purpose, because I know that there's discussion at the Planning Commission, and I'm sure there will be tonight, of these are big projects that the state are proposing. What if they don't get funded? Are they funded yet? At this stage, there are funding for these items of design in the state's budget. Now, those certainly, there's a lot that goes on at the state bureaucracy. It will require the local government to work with the state government to get the secretary to authorize the state highway traffic engineer to go forward. But you don't do design unless you intend to do the project. You don't spend $2 million of design unless you intend to do the project. So this is why, by way of showing that these are very viable projects. They're listed as high priority in the 6-year plan. There is budgeted in state funding, and this is called the state-funded regional significant project phases. So the state is moving towards making these a reality. And so I think that shows that at final build-out, or even in that phase 2, if we're not there yet, the state's got their eye on this, and they're making this to where not just for this project, for the whole area, whether this project's there or not, there's going to be improvements that are going to fix the area. But again, that first phase that we show, if you look at that traffic study, no material effects on the service areas of those roads in that first phase. And at each phase, including that first one, the Planning Commission has to approve that development plan.
One thing, can we put back the presentation, please? I want to show the timing on the state. Thank you. So if you look at the timing here of the states, I anticipate the construction for both projects to be complete in 2029. So we said in phase 1, assuming not being complete in 2029 or 2030, we did our analysis based on 80 single-family home and 65 townhouses. But that's how the state is planning to complete their project on 2029.
And again, that improvement, that particular improvement, we, out of a conservative estimate, push that to a 2035 phase. So again, a 2030 phase. This may not be there, still not needed. So I'm going to wrap up now. I know we've taken a lot of time, and the public will have a lot to say. But just to reiterate, this is a project that I believe, all things being equal, you all would normally welcome. An affordable housing project. I understand that there will be concerns, and there are concerns about traffic, and they should always be taken into consideration. I think that we've shown that the traffic concerns, through the appropriate phasing, through working with the Transportation Cabinet, using your processes that are already in place with the development plans and your Planning Commission, This will take its time, and it will be done well, and it will be done safely. You giving this a zone in the next couple weeks, again, is not shovels and hammers. We may be 2 years away from that, 18 months, 2 years. And in that time, we'll see how all this phases out, and we'll be able to work with the Planning Commission. So accepting that that's a very reasonable concern and expecting you all to take that into consideration and knowing that that's going to be a lot that was talked about tonight, I would just ask you as you deliberate that you think through that there's a possibility that that very real concern is not something that would stop this development phase at this point. Because when you all give it a zone, you're just authorizing, start the process. That's something that can be worked out and something that you all can have confidence has all the stopgaps in place. And so when you all today, not approving a development plan, that's not your purview, that's the Planning Commission's. When you all today, just looking at what is the appropriate zone for this property, I would ask you to look to that comprehensive plan that calls for affordable housing for all different sectors of this community, diverse housing types, and particularly called for single family in this area, and is something that you all have asked us to, as the development community, to bring forward. So I think this is a good project. I think it's what we need in our community, and it's certainly in agreement with your comprehensive plan, which is your standard. So as you listen tonight, as you deliberate in your minds over the next few weeks, I would ask you to think about only your job in this phase of the zone change. Is this appropriate, and can the concerns be worked through the process? And I believe the answer is yes. And Mayor, I would just ask for a brief opportunity after the public has had an opportunity to speak, just any rebuttal or question answering or a closing, unless any of the commissioners have questions for me now.
Okay, as we begin to hear, anyone have a question of Mr. Worley at this time? Okay, then we'll begin hearing from the public. Thank you, sir. Sirs and ma'am. Madam Clerk, do you have that list? Okay, we'll begin hearing then from the public. The clerk will call the name of those who have signed in to speak. Please remember that that limit is 5 minutes. There is a timer here, and once one has come to the podium, you will not be allowed to come back again to speak. Second time, you may not collect the time of others. 5 minutes is the limit. Madam Clerk, please.
Debbie Vesio. Where's Debbie?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
Yes. Good evening.
Appreciate it. Basically, don't have the charts, but, I'm here to give you a Reader's Digest version of what happened in the April 7th and April 17th and August 21st particular meeting. Basically, I'm here to present facts with research that I've done, not speculations or assumptions that has been previously shown here. They talk about first of all, they talk about agriculture not being in the city, but your comprehensive plan actually says 51% of existing land use is agricultural, so just to keep that in mind. As well as we're not here to approve a concept plan. Again, as mentioned, it's to approve a zone. But Richmond's ordinances on page 28 say that R1C is 5.1 dwellings per gross acre. R2, 5.1 dwellings per gross acre. So for 210 acres, that's 1,071 dwellings. Now that says gross acres, and the reason I bring that up is because this is a city ordinance. And if you're not going to follow that particular city ordinance, then it shouldn't be there. So anyway, April 17th, we presented, and it was a 7-0 to deny based on density. And then, as you know, August 21st was a 3-3 tie. So let me, if y'all look at this page, if you don't mind, because I'm a visual person instead of all the lines and stuff. So I wanted to show you, one of the things is Amberley Way is one of the places that they reference. At the end of Amberley Way, up in the top left-hand corner, is Castlewood, and that has 84 homes in it. So that comes out there. Of course, you've got Galaxy Bowling, your active living center, other things there. For the next page, of course, there's hotels and stuff there, but if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, Conlington Lane dead ends into Old Town Branch. There is a single tunnel that drives through that takes you to Lancaster Road, so it's the single tunnel. This was taken in mid-morning, but if you're there on the weekends or when people are coming home from work, it's really backed up. And what this has turned into is a cut-through for people from Lancaster to get to Myers or the shops over there to avoid all the traffic that you have going on. On the next page, what I did, so I don't have to read through these, but a lot of people are talking about one subdivision. This is within the area, if you will. There's 16 subdivisions there. So, and what I did, I kept this, I made sure Goggins Lane, went over to the bridge. You know, these aren't subdivisions out in the counties. These are city. And so anyway, there's 1,356 homes in that area. Also on Hampton Way in Amberley, which I was really surprised, we actually have 8 hotels there and 6 restaurants. So you have a lot of traffic that way. The thing as well has not been mentioned is all the approved developments that you already have on the books. Of course, we have the park and the middle school, but we also have the Ramsey project that has 1,100 units approved, homes, townhomes, quads, apartments, and commercial. You just recently approved Signature Rental, which is on the other end of Myers, which is 216 apartments. We have Parkview at Hanger Farm, that's on the corner of Goggins and Tate's Creek. There's 258 homes have been approved to be built there, and basically, I think he has about 30 done or so. We also have LTC Group, 21.39 acres, which is R2 already, and actually it's owned by Lone Tree. You also have 4 Under Par LLC, which is 56.3 acres, already R2, that's owned by Lone Tree. They purchased these properties back in 2022, and these properties are adjacent to that 210 acres. So they're right next to it. Okay? Can I get a drink? Water. Okay. So basically, how did we get here? Well, if you look at the page from the Richmond Register, on July 30th, there was a particular notice in there that says the Richmond Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a special called work session meeting on July 31st at 5:30 to approve the July 17th meeting minutes and to discuss Heritage Place and to hear from a presentation from Lone Tree. The only thing that we were aware of was Hampton 210. We didn't even know anything about Lone
Madam
Tree.
Clerk, does that mean that she's exceeded the 5?
I'm sorry.
Can't do that. Wait a minute. I will ask you to be removed from this chambers. I ask for respect, and we will demand it. Madam Clerk, please, does that mean
That
that
she's
she's...
out of time.
All right, Debbie, I'm going to be a bit suffering here. Can you wrap it up in the next minute or so?
I'll try to, real quick.
Then if not, then I will wrap the gavel.
Okay. That works. Well, anyway, they held a meeting, they put an announcement in the paper on July 30th with Lone Tree. Basically, we only knew about Hampton 210. The meeting was actually held the next day, the following day, under Lone Tree. In there, they mentioned about the affordable housing needs, but I want to look at the traffic study real quick. Within their stuff, it mentions they anticipate roads being KTC improvements, Barnes Mill improvements, that sort of thing. Well, basically, they left out the page that said, out of that same presentation, that said, further funding will be necessary to advance the improvements to the design phase as an additional phase of the project are not funded by Kentucky fiscal year 2022 through 2028. So they also show this particular page saying it's in the 6-year plan. This is the 6-year plan for Kentucky with all of this stuff in here, as well as I-75. It's federal funding for I-75.
Whose 6-year plan is that?
This is KYTC's, Kentucky's
All right, thank you.
Transportation 6-year highway plan. So it's all 120 counties buying. I just want to read real quick this one page because Barnes Mill is considered to be an SPP construction. So page 20 of that actually says both the 2024 recommended highway plan and the 2024 enactment highway plan recognizes previous enactment highway plan projects and contains considerably more SPP projects, which is Barnes Mill, then we expect to have dollars available to implement. So basically right there, they don't have it. So that was the key thing. You guys have the rest of it. Oh, can I show you one page, if you don't mind? The last page, I mentioned about Lone Tree and the 21 acres and the 56 acres, which are adjacent to it. Those are R2. You have 5.1 units per acre. I pulled this off of Lone Tree's website for projection, for projects. Within here, for this property, it's not the 210, it's the property next to it, says the number of units is 400 plus. So they are already planning 400 plus units before they even get to the 210 acres. So now they're asking for more. So basically, I asked you that, you know, I'm not going to say greed, but
Thank you.
anyway,
Thank
you know,
you.
thank you.
Madam Clerk, who's next on the list, please?
Steve Vesio.
All right. Who's
Scott
next?
Mandel.
Scott Mandel? Scott, where are you? And I will ask, if I'm in order, Mr. Attorney, I will not, please do not accept that as a precedent, the fact that I let her go. That is not a precedent. 5 minutes, please. Scott?
Mr. Mayor, would you be able to let IT know that due to the fact that I'm representing an entire neighborhood and they have all now foregoing their opportunity to come up so that I might present their information much more concisely and in the space of only a few, could you let IT know that we have talked to you and the city
Okay,
manager?
explain that again.
Yeah.
You're representing, yes, I'm aware that you're representing,
The entire neighborhood of Old Town Branch.
Old Town Branch.
Which was the neighborhood that was required to be legally notified because they are the ones that are directly adjacent to this proposed project.
Okay.
And as such, they've elected to forego their opportunity to speak so that I could do it more concisely and save us all time.
in 5 minutes?
No,
Yes. Yes. Ma'am, please don't do that to me.
okay,
Do not yell anything to me,
okay.
because I'll clear the house. Now, Scott, you go ahead. When we get close to that 5, I'll see where you are. You let me know where you are.
Okay. Well,
And
as
then I'll
I,
try then to accommodate.
Okay, I appreciate it. As I shared with you and the city manager before we got up here, I'm going to try to do this in the space of 3 or 4 of our folks, and none of them are going to get up. 12 of them
Are you
spoke
say-
at the
I'm-
last
I'm still
meeting.
trying to understand. Are you saying 15 to 20 minutes?
Ballpark.
No. 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 I mean, if you're speaking in objection, then just speak in objection. You don't have to give all the detail that everybody else would give. Just speak in objection, please.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you all being here, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, I've spent 20 hours preparing this with the understanding that I would, but I will do my very best to cut it down.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
As
that.
much as humanly possible. So to be clear, I'm Scott Mandel. I've been before you all before representing Heritage Place, and so you know me maybe as their spokesperson. But as I just stated, tonight I'm here representing all these good folks, more than 20, I think 25 homes that are in Old Town Branch neighborhood. And they have asked me to speak on their behalf, so that we might save the time of numerous people coming up, and we appreciate any indulgence you can give us. Clearly, as we look at this issue, and I'm cutting drastically as I read, there is obviously 2 sides to this issue. There's kind of the tail side and the head side. There's 2 sides of the coin. Obviously, the developer and Mr. Worley and that crew, they have done, I think, an excellent job of sharing their goals and what they would like to see get done. And certainly, providing homes is their mission, and making money is also part of what they do. Nothing wrong with that. It's free enterprise, and certainly that's their right. But for you all, you are on the other side, which we'll call the head side of the coin. And tonight we hope we use our heads as we look at just a few things that this neighborhood felt were very important to consider. So with that, I'm going to cut out numerous other pages of my amazingly intellectual presentation and get right to it. So let me click ahead here. And this will work perfectly, but only if you turn it on. Are we okay right there?
Scott, well, he's coming.
Okay. We arranged the other one, but I'm happy to use that one. No. Is it on? Well, let's see. There we go. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Whatever you did, thank you all.
I'll take that into account, Scott.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So basically, I wanted to start briefly with an analogy, and just that analogy is that as we look at this, I think it's important to think of a very important concept. And I was going to get into some detail, but just the basic idea is that this is a fantastic airplane. It's wonderful. It flies 700 miles an hour. It'll carry 800 people, and that's great. But it's not the right plane to land at the Madison County Airport. Okay, nothing wrong with that plane, but this isn't the place for that to land. And so as we think about that, we wanted to look at what we feel are some really key questions. So I'll zip through these as fast as humanly possible. So the first question is, was the density significantly reduced? And in both of the meetings, in the second meeting, one of the commissioners noted that it's hardly reduced at all. It was in fact only reduced 11% from the first meeting, 513, to the second meeting. And so this is not really a major reduction. And of the 10 votes in those 2 meetings, of the 13 votes in those 2 meetings, 10 went against it, 3 went for it. The next question is I-75 in good shape right now? The majority of the people that want to get to this development are going to come south if they're coming from Lexington, for instance, and use that exit right there that we're all familiar with, southbound 87. Since I don't have time, I would like to read some letters, but let me just tell you that they would say that numerous of our residents right now, already with today's traffic, have been caught numerous times not able to get off on that exit ramp and access Barnes Mill Road. Because of that, they're in the position of being on the actual I-75, not the off-ramp, and I think most of us have been there. It's an extremely dangerous situation, and it will not be improved by increased traffic. Likewise, another person said that they've had difficulty turning left on, this is Amberley Way, and they've had to sit through numerous traffic cycles trying to get through this because at least this is got a traffic light. If you go on to the next road, of course, which is Hampton, and Debbie, I apologize, I meant to say you did a fantastic job sharing this. And Debbie is our Paul Revere for these development issues, and I really appreciate the great job you did. Forgive me for not mentioning it. But Hampton Way right here, because it has no traffic light, it is difficult to get in and out of sometime, and so folks often go to that other area. So the question is, I-75 and those roads, are they in good shape right now? The next question that we looked at is, what about the general infrastructure? How is that working? Not only the road coming in, which is Hampton Way, but if you go on down to Congleton and you go on Old Town, they already have significant water and flooding issues right now. We believe that those issues will not be improved if you add the roofs, the sidewalks, and the driveways of 455 housing units right next door. That just makes common sense. What about the emergency response time? This is the home of the Currys. They live along this neighborhood that I'm representing here today. They found a small fire in their garage, and at the time they took this, there was still no fire units that had made it there yet. When you add the traffic issues, which we've already discussed, when you talk about flooding, bad weather, wrecks that happen occasionally, right now it is already an issue. And unfortunately, you can see this house was their dream house, and now it's a total loss, and they've lost the ability to live there, to continue their life there, and had to move out. So that is a key issue. Now, one of the things they brought up is that there are a lot of good traffic plans. And so one of our questions is, do we have assurance that these traffic plans, the improvements, are going to come to fruition? And I pulled this directly off the traffic study. If you were to add that up, you can't see it because of the clock, but this is roughly $60 million of needed traffic improvements. This is only one of two sets. The other one has over $12 million of road improvements. And my assumption is the numbers that they gave us were assuming that those improvements are made. Hope is a good thing, but hope is not a plan. We do hope that those improvements are made, but there are, I believe, $0 right now dedicated to these improvements. So that's something to keep in mind. So in effect, we need $60 million plus $12 million to have all those put together. Now, just real quickly, I did want to look at the traffic study. I have zero experience as a traffic engineer. I think Mr. Helani, I'm sure, has done this forever and knows what he's doing. But I have almost half a century as a motorist. And 40 years of that is right here in Richmond. So what I did when he looked at the study, and I would have pulled it up, but for time's sake I won't. But if I remember right, at the top of page 2, the first set of numbers that he gave us was the very important intersection, especially with our new school coming up, and that's going to be Barnes Mill and Goggins Lane. And if memory serves, he showed that right now the average wait time is 26 seconds. And with what I call the 2-second miracle, that in 6 years, with all the new housing that we have planned, is going to not increase, it's going to decrease by 2 seconds. With thousands of new vehicles and trips, I think that's a near miracle. It might be because there's a church on the corner and they're getting extra prayer, but
Scott, I'm going to allow, with all of the interruptions you've had, allowing for those, I'm going to allow you another 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. So the really big question, I think, for us is, thank you, Mayor, appreciate it, is not, is this a great project? The question is it the right project, and is it at the right time, and is this the right place for it? If you look right now, and he made another point. He said, there is a huge need. He told me there's a need for 5 million affordable homes across the country. So let's look at, is there a need right here in Madison County, and even more importantly in Richmond? If we looked at the comprehensive plan, we would see that their computer is stalled yet again. But we would see, there we go, thank you very much. We'd see that these are already in the pipeline. That's 1,000 units at the farm, 250 Parkview, 250 Signature, 400 Hampton Hills. And if you add those up, along with the idea that our chemical D-mill program is going to be starting to phase out, and it starts next year, that's 1,500 people that work there. And if just a quarter of those were to move out, that is 2,310 homes that are in the pipeline. Now, let's look at the growth. In our comprehensive plan, 16,000 Madison Countyans are supposed to be added to our rolls between now and 2040. 39% right now are in Richmond, so if we apply that, that means we have 6,200 people moving in at 2.65 people per housing unit. That means there's a need for 2,350 homes. 2,310, 2,350. And keep in mind, so is there really a huge screaming need? And finally, look at, there's 4 housing areas that are projected that I haven't even touched, nor have I even mentioned the homes on the east side of I-75. So I don't really think that there is a huge need. And to wrap up here,
Thank you, sir.
if we were to look at the comprehensive plan, we would see that this is not zoned for what they're asking. It's zoned for R1. They're asking for R1 and R2. And if they want to place to build R2 homes, he, as we've heard, is already approved for, in concept, 400 homes. So I think he's got a great plan a place to do that. And as I wrap up and as we ask these questions, was the reduced? Is I-75 ready right now? No. Is Congleton Hampton roads, are they in great shape? No. Is the infrastructure and emergency response right now okay? It is not. Is this environmentally good with the effect on the water? Do we think this is going to increase property values for those nearby? Are the housing units only thing that will affect traffic? No, we've got a school opening up, we've got another school increasing, and we got what will be a wonderful park that is going to be open up, our new athletic complex, all of which will drive even more traffic. We're not assured of road improvements. It's not a good fit for the adjacent homes. They have a 6.5 average acre per home, and they're looking for a density that is 6 times that. Is there a critical need for housing? We just showed there's already plenty in the pipeline. Did Planning and Zoning recommend it? They did not. Is the request consistent with a comprehensive plan? Mr. Worley said it's 100%. His 100% is clearly different than mine. And so as we look to October 8th, it seems to me that it is quite clear the vote that's needed on this. All you have to do is ask the right questions, and we are going to trust you to join us with the right answers. And I thank you very much for my time.
Thank you, Scott. Madam Clerk?
Mike Conley.
I'm Mike Conley with M.A. Conley Construction, and my family and I have been living and building homes in Madison County for a long time now. As a resident of the county, I hear a lot of misconceptions about this project, and I just wanted to take my few minutes, and it will be under 5, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take my few minutes and address some of those misconceptions that I hear. The first misconception that I've heard numerous times is that this project is just building a bunch of apartments and a bunch of duplexes. That's not in the plan at all. There are absolutely no apartments. There are some townhomes. Those townhomes will be zoned as condos. Those townhomes will be zoned as condos so that they can be sold individually to homeowners. And I think encouraging home ownership is really, as a community, what we need to do. And also understanding that it's not just homes that we need, but it's affordable homes that normal working people can afford. Another misconception that I've heard several times is that Lone Tree's bringing in a bunch of people from out of state to do all of this building. And that's absolutely not the case. It'll be my family and I building it. And we'll be using the same subcontractors and the same local suppliers that we've always used. We've heard several times about, it seems that people think this project's going to start and within a year we're going to have 400 plus houses out there and it's just going to overwhelm all the city services. That's absolutely not the case. So from day one, Lone Tree has brought this project as a multi-year project and spreading it out over those multiple years, that 455 homes, as it spreads out over the years, the city will start to get tax revenue from that, and then they'll be able to upgrade the fire services, the police protection, the schools. So the multi-year approach, I think, is key that we keep that in mind too. And then just the fact that Lone Tree's goal here is to provide affordable housing for working class folks. So that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
Constance Adams.
Constance Adams?
No, I don't have it.
Looks like Lonnie Harris.
Lonnie Harris, is that
My
right?
issues have been addressed.
Lewis
Thank you.
Bailey.
That name again?
Door?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What was that, Lisa?
Lewis Bailey.
Lewis.
Louis Bailey.
L-O or L-E?
Louis.
Thank you, sir.
Bailey. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to address the mayor, council. And you can see I've really come prepared. So mine is very short. I live out Barnes Mill. The road is already overly congested, and we're not even talking about all the new houses and all the new things, parks, etc. It goes on and on. Y'all know that. I was surprised at the number of homes that are already approved, let alone bringing in all these additional ones. I drove down that road, and I'm going, I must have missed it. Where's the road that they're going to take? I am a firm advocate. I've lived in Lexington, I've lived in Cincinnati, I've lived in Atlanta. You better build a road before you do anything else. And I am already seeing, thank you. Anyway, I have already seen the people backing up and learning that they have to get into the pull-off danger zone if they're going to turn in the exit. I am already seeing that. And I have had people coming to my house call me and say, is there an accident? I can't get off the exit. It's just a normal day. And I hate to tell them, it's just a normal day. It's just the time you're coming through. Also, the traffic study, did it take into account when people get out of the churches and decide they want to go out and eat? There needs to be some traffic study done at, we'll say, right after church, before you would go over and eat at the restaurants. And we've heard that we're having some new restaurants coming into town. So we've got growth. I'm all for affordable housing, but it can't be everywhere locked up before the roads are built. Roads first, how's the second? Thank you.
Barbara Huntington. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening.
Okay, I'm here to talk about the schools. I'm not going to waste any time. We got 11 elementary schools here in Richmond and Madison County. We got 6 middle schools, 2 high schools. One is Southern down there. Okay, 2 career schools. That gives us a total of 21. We got over 12,500 students that go into them 21 schools at the present time. With all the development, you're going to have a problem. We're going to need a lot more schools because you have put so much development, subdivision and everything, and this one just is not going to help. In our schools, for classrooms, we are allowed to have 24 in the primary, and primary is from kindergarten to 3rd grade. So only 24 students are in that class. In 4th grade, we can have 28. And in 5th and 6th grade, we can only have 29. Now, the problem is we got them. We already got that many kids. We don't have room for any more. So we're going to have another big problem. Besides that, we are short on buses. I had 78 kids on my bus today, and that's a low number. I had already had 85 kids. The bus can only hold 84. So I got 1 kid that had a problem. Okay, we are short 10 drivers. At the present time, we got between 35 and 40 teachers, aides, secretaries, and mechanics that are driving for us because we don't have enough. We also got cut in our budget from the federal budget thing. 46% of the school's finances were cut by the state. That's a lot of money, and we cannot afford it. We have to build houses, we have to build things, and I agree we have to enlarge, but we're doing it too fast. We need to slow down. Okay, we were told affordable houses. Okay, I talked to my daughter-in-law that worked in real estate thing. She told me a $250,000 home with a 30-year mortgage will cost the person $1,663 a month. I don't know any. My mom always taught me what you bring home per week is what you do on the budget, what you do on your house payment. Well, I don't know anybody too much that would bring home $1,663. That's a lot of money, and that's not what I call affordable houses. That was $250,000 home, and that does not include the mortgage fee. It does not include the property tax, and does not include the home insurance. We have to remember our children most of all. The children are very important. We can't overcrowd our classrooms. So when you get the school built, then you can build more houses. But we have to get our kids first. Because in their houses, you got 255 houses. You got to figure an average of about 2 per home, per house. That's over 900 more children in there. Some of them will not have 2, some of them will have 4. Some will have 1, but the average is about 2 per home. And that's 900 children. That's a lot of children to add to our budget and to our schools. So, and we will not be able to put all them schools in such a short time. So, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I took a short time. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Carol Yeager.
All right. Is that Yeager, Lisa. You said
Yeager.
Yeager.
I think I said
My
it
name
right.
is Carol Yeager. I speak very softly, people tell me, but I'll do the best I can. If you can't hear
That's
me,
fine, yes, indeed.
I will talk into the phone, or talk into the microphone, because it's on my level. So I didn't come prepared. I just started thinking about this yesterday. I called a lot of my neighbors to see if they'd show up. Unfortunately, I waited too late, and most of the people that I called couldn't come tonight. I have the same concerns that the people voiced already, the traffic. I really appreciate Debbie Vescio's comments. I really appreciate Mrs. Huntington's. Also, Mike Mandel for Old Town Branch. We live on Lancaster Road. We live about 4.5 miles out Lancaster Road. We always take that shortcut going Old Town Branch through that single tunnel to get to that part of town, because we do a lot of business on that part of town. It's not bad right now, but as we see this development, it does worry me that the more, can you hear me? The more and more development we see, we're going to run into trouble. I'd like to also address the water issue. Back this past year, we made a couple of trips to East Tennessee. We went on a tour to the west. There's major water problems with other areas. This area could have water problems too, although we have quite a bit of rain. Our water comes from the Kentucky River. My daddy used to be the water plant operator in Waco, at the Waco plant. He always had concerns about things that happened there. He's been dead for a long time now, but I've learned a lot about what happens with our water. We've got sufficient water now, but with time, we may be like East Tennessee. As we drove down through East Tennessee in the west this past summer, we saw major problems with water. As you go down through Kentucky, I don't know my roads very well, 25 and go 31, and you go across East Tennessee, there's lakes in that area that are totally dry now. They didn't used to be. When we would travel that way before, they had plenty of water. There's no water there now. I don't know if it's overdevelopment. I didn't do my research very well, but I suspect that's one of the problems. Okay, then sewer. Sewer is the same thing. Do we have good sewer septic systems to handle this? I'm assuming this will all be city sewer. All this development that's going to come in here will be city sewer. Is our septic system able to handle this? Because that's quite a problem. If you don't have a good septic system, we're going to run into trouble with that. Then runoff. As water comes down and we put much more concrete in, we're going to run into trouble with runoff. We're going to have the flooding. As we come from our house on Lancaster Road to go Cal East, to go over to Duncannon, then when water gets up, there's some flooding there. Now, I don't know why, but there's always flooding there. You have to watch and be careful not to go that way. There's also a bridge out. We used to go to Brea, going Cal East and then Mentalist. And if you're familiar with the bridge that goes across, that bridge has been out for a very long time. We have to go a lot longer now going Walnut Meadow to go across that bridge. It's things like that because we do have trouble with transportation, with traffic in this problem and with infrastructure that's not ready for development. We went to Waco the other night, and going to Waco about 5:30, 4:06, it was bumper-to-bumper traffic. And if you're not familiar, and we really hadn't been there for a long time, that at the ordinance where you've got one lane, two lanes, and it goes into one lane very quickly, we were in the wrong lane. And then suddenly we were trying to get in the other lane, and you have a hard time doing that. Unfortunately, we're having more and more accidents around here all the time. On Facebook, I see WBON TV. That's one I really appreciate because they report very quickly what's happening in Madison County and accidents that are happening. Unfortunately, last night a pedestrian was killed out in front of Okanite, as far as I know, unless that was misinformation. But that's the information that happened last night. And we're seeing that every single day, and I think it's due to the increase in traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Madam Clerk?
Linda Young.
Hi.
Good evening.
So I think everybody here has done a really good job of speaking. I just wanted to add a few things to what they said. On this Hampton 210 property, there's dry branches that run off of this property directly into the creek right before you turn into our neighborhood. I don't know anything about construction. They keep saying they're going to build retention ponds or they'll have to or whatever, but there's no way, you're not allowed to obstruct these branches. They're always dry unless it rains. When you take up all that green space, it's really going to do us in back there. And a lot of people have mentioned the tunnel. One thing they have not mentioned is when you turned on the end of Congleton, you can't see left through the tunnel if you're behind the stop sign or not pulled almost middle of that road before you can see through the tunnel. You can't do that. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned is all the traffic that parks in the road. Hampton Way, a lot of days, is cut down to a one-lane road where you're zigzagging through it. And especially if there's any snow or ice or chance of snow or ice, all those duplexes, not apartments, they're up on the hill, so they all park on the street. So you have that all the time. Every time one of those college students has a party, they're parked up and down the street. People who use that as a cut-through that don't drive it every day, they go once a week to Meijer or to the shopping center or what, we drive it every day. We zigzag through there. If there can't be a full turning lane all the way through those duplexes, there doesn't need to be anything built back there. I mean, you're literally putting all these houses on a one-lane road several hours in a week. It's a one-lane road. Maybe even a full 24 hours in a week. You've got a one-lane road there. We travel it every day. I've worked on Hampton Way for 23 years. I live off of Old Town Branch Road. We see it every day. It's a huge issue. Just wanted to add those things.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please.
Douglas Littman. Okay. Jennifer Browning.
I hadn't planned on speaking today. I was going to yield my time, but since I have a few minutes. I would like to point out some inconsistencies in the planning paperwork that was submitted. Hampton 210, Goal 3 of their planning paperwork says that there's going to be a zone change states. Ensure that housing developments are served by adequate amenities and infrastructure. How will this be ensured? Many of Richmond's daycares and schools are at capacity. Physicians have a lengthy wait due to overcrowding. The streets are crowded and it is difficult to drive across town. So that will not be satisfied. Goal 6, Objective 1 states, encourage future growth where current and adequate infrastructure and amenities exist in order to limit the negative effects of urban sprawl. This development completely undermines this objective as it will add to the negative effects of urban sprawl. There is no current infrastructure for this land. This is vacant land. They also say that this is already urban in nature. This is not urban in nature. This is 200 acres of pristine land. His development may be a great development. We may need affordable housing. This is not the place for it. It is not the time. We need to have other things in place. Please help us by not approving this zone change to help retain the beauty and culture of Richmond that we love.
Madam Clerk.
Elaine Phillips.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So after the Planning and Zoning Committee met the last time, I emailed each one of you. I tried to phone a couple of you, and I want to thank Commissioners Cole and Goebel for acknowledging my email. I appreciate that. And Mayor, I just encourage you to read that plethora of emails you've received if you haven't already.
I know what they say.
Because I am sure there's some good stuff in there. Now, my few comments here are based on that planning and zoning meeting. Not to say that I don't have so many thoughts at this very minute, but I will reserve those for my family and my friends. So I'm going to entertain you, Mayor, with a little math. Okay, we're going to do a little math
And
here.
you got to understand, she and I were teachers together. Yeah.
Right, we talked together many moons
Math and
ago.
science.
When we were both a little younger. Okay, so first of all, 20 years of construction reminds me of Atlanta. That's bothersome. Just to do the quick math based on what we learned last time at the planning and zoning, 1.8 cars per unit of those 450 is 8,190 additional cars. Now, it does not take a traffic study to figure out that that's a lot of cars. And that's gonna, impact my trip to Meyer and on across the bridge, which is already a little lengthy. Now, my next little math thing real quick, I'm watching my time here. So I just kind of did a quick Google a few minutes ago of the Lone Tree in Utah, and it said that in Utah, Lone Tree is building 2,000 square foot homes for $235,000, which is $117.50 per square foot, which is a little higher, I think, than what the average is in Madison County at this time. Might be a little more, but or it could be close. Okay, so when we were at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, this issue of affordable housing, we've thrown that out probably 30, 40 times just tonight. Okay, I just really don't feel like it's the job of Richmond's leadership to provide housing for people who might show up and could afford to pay $300,000 for a 900 square foot house, which averages out to $333 per square foot, which is way more than they're building them for in Utah. So I just really think that as the leadership of our community, both the city and the county, that you consider not the people who might live in Richmond, but those of us who do and are here now. Take that into consideration, because these are the people that live here every day, that love our town, and that want the best for it. And I hope that you will, really think about that. Now, my only other question, and you may or may not, because I know one of the rules is you're not going to engage, but my last question to you as a commission, by show of hands, is do any of you currently live west of I-75 and south of Tate's Creek?
I'm not going to respond.
You do, Commissioner Brewer?
But
I used to live on Goggins, but I moved because of the traffic.
Thank you for your time.
Madam Clerk?
George Bonvilla?
This is fine.
Vanilla,
Oh, okay.
like vanilla would be.
Just a couple more.
I have to come on, they laugh like that, that's great.
Are you, Steve?
But everybody on both sides have given wonderful presentations. And by the way, thank you for allowing me the time to speak. The main thing I'm worried about is what's already been touched on. Who is all this housing for? I've known several people in the last 20 years. When I moved here, I live on Deacon Hills, by the way. And when I moved here, there was a cow pasture across from my house. Now there's a mall. It really doesn't bother me, because next time we have an ice storm, I can hike across to Myers. Because I'm literally the second house in Deacon Hills. Well, I've already heard from the Planning Commission, I'll be moving. because that is going to come right through my front yard. I looked right at their map. So whatever they're going to do to expand the road, I'm the second house in. And so I'll be moving after 20 years of being here and starting a business, and I do a TV show here. But we will be moving, because we won't sit there and have people driving through our yard. We have at least 20 to 30 people a day turn in our driveway to get back out on Deacon Hills every single day. So many people, and believe me, I love living there. So many people turn in our driveway that we have had to have our driveway paved twice a year, every year, because they run a rut right through the middle of it. It's where the drainage ditch goes. It ruts out. So, we put up with that because we love our neighborhood. I'm sure you all love your neighborhoods. But the main thing worries me, there's been a few things that have said that in our day and age, you kind of have to read between the lines. You have to listen to what's being said and listen carefully. The word affordable has come up over and over and over, hasn't it? You've heard that over and over and over. But one thing that was said that kind of caught my ear. There are certain people can't be here tonight because they're working. They're working at restaurants. They're working at menial jobs. They can't be here, but they can afford a $250,000 house. Those two do not match. So you have to know you're not being lied to. You're being gleaned. You're being told the best scenario that's going to sound the best to you to get this housing project approved. We are talking thousands of units here. I've had 4 friends in the past 2 years move away to Florida. 4. I don't know of any person that I've met in the last 2 years to take their place, a new person living here. So where are all these thousands of people coming from? The one thing you have to keep in mind, and believe me, I am not anti-growth. I'm the American way. Grow, expand, be who you can be and be all that you can be. But who are all these people coming? There are towns in our country that are being absolutely reworked. And you've got to worry about that. What is all this housing for? Are we being set up to be reworked? We just came from Springfield, Ohio last weekend. I am not anti-immigrant. I think my dad was an immigrant, by the way. So I'm not anti-immigrant. But be careful what happens in your community, because you can be reworked very quickly. And when you see thousands of units coming into a place the size of this all of a sudden, that has to be in your mind. And that's all I got to say, folks. I just want you to know that I love the community, and since I'm moving out with the road construction, I'll come back and visit. Thank you for your time, sir.
Madam Clerk?
Billy Good.
I'm glad that y'all give us this opportunity to speak. It's a good thing, but for my words to do any good, I've got 2 things I'd like to tell you that I think you'll go home and think about later. Number one, and it addresses traffic. I know we've addressed a lot of traffic, but I'm a Class A CDL driver. I don't drive every day, but I work for a construction company and got a unique perspective. If you want to put Richmond on the map for fixing traffic problems, you could fix everybody's problems and not even worry about this development if you'd have your officers cite people that were on their cell phones completely, because that's the cause of most traffic and accidents, and really, you give me a soapbox, I wanted to say it. But my main concern, all right, I live on Will Green Lake, and nobody's said that word this whole time. And I'm afraid it's been overlooked. I really am just desperately afraid that when they come up with these concept plans, they've not looked at what they're doing. Because Will Green Lake in maps, used to extend all the way to I-75. There's 6 foot roughly. I haven't been able to run a level circuit and find out for sure, but I know that there's about 6 foot of drop from the culvert that goes under I-75 to what they consider normal water level. They cut that in half and went 3 foot for the one when they built Hampton Way, but they filled up a whole area there. And that is Richmond's retention for that whole end of the, I know you know what retention means. They build the little ponds on every development. Even a small shop has to build an ugly-looking pond in the front of it or whatever. But what you don't see is off to the side, all that water goes somewhere. Will Green Lake holds it back from Silver Creek so that it doesn't overflood Silver Creek. It did overrun the main spillway or whatever here a couple of years ago, and it washed out parking lot, but it actually did what it was supposed to. It went over the emergency dam. that they've got there. And thank God it didn't go over too much more than that, because it would have cut the earthen dam. But this whole area, when I speak, I'm speaking of the project that they've already got approved. Hampton Hills, I think is what it's called on their website. If you look at the picture of Hampton Hills, it is drawn on top of a satellite image. All the dark areas, they've got lots run down into them. And I know they didn't pay that much attention to Will Green Lake because it says Will Green deed not found is the only thing it says. But that area is Will Green Lake. 16-foot flood, and that's rough, but I know exactly on my own property where that mark is because I know where it got to 3 years ago, exactly. And I'm pretty sure it's about 16 foot of vertical height of water. Now, that's all that area, all the dark area that you see in their picture. So either they're wanting to take Hampton Hills and cut the hill off and fill this area and make it Hampton Flat like the pictures show, or they haven't put any consideration into it at all because that's acre feet of water that's retention for when it rains really hard. And if you'll go and just take a moment when you get home, get on your computer and get on a real computer, not your phone, but go to Google Earth and not the maps, the actual Google Earth program, and then go to usgs.com. Both of those have historic pictures, and you've got to flip through a lot of them and wait on to load, but the historic satellite imagery, there's only a few that show while it's flooding, and those are not even, according to what I'm looking at on my own property versus there, these satellite images are only showing like high water. It's not showing flood stage. But this is all, it's a major portion of that property is underwater. All the low part has water then. And if they're allowed to fill it up with material and build lots that extend out into that, if in any way they add any cubic volume to that area that's above water line, anything above the ground, if you add volume to it and it's less than, I'm going to say 10 foot from the current ground in the flat area in the bottom, then you're taking away that much retention from Richmond's exfil of water. And flooding along Old Town Branch will be greatly increased, but really, a major amount of flooding on down the line, because that is why they built Will Green Lake. And both these properties have areas that are within that flood stage, and that is the retention basin for the city of Richmond on that end. Everything from about X side, well, really from the hospital on that side of the bypass, everything ends up there in the end. And then a whole bunch more when you look at down the other direction, everything around Big Lots, that whole side of all that goes there. All the neighborhoods down Lancaster Road, all those, every bit of all that area, all that half of EKU, all those infields that haven't been developed on the other side of Lancaster Road, all that drains to there. And, if you do anything to stop that retention, when we have those rains, like, I don't know how long y'all have lived here. I've lived here my entire life, 42 years old. We've had a couple bad rains. We had the one time it rained twice in one day, spread 2 hours apart, and that's the most I can remember as far as flooding. But when it does that, if this retention basin is taken away, then any of it, then it is going to affect it on down the line, and that's literally why they built the lake. I can't find any documentation on their plans when the Army Corps built the actual, what they were intending it to be. I've been researching since I was a kid. I always did my science fair projects on Will Green, and I never could find out anything. But if you just look at the pictures and the maps that you can find on the internet easily, then you'll see what I'm talking about. Old maps showed Will Green being all the way to I-75 in a significant width. And the reason it's not now is just because it's filled in with vegetation and growth and sediment from the many projects that have happened upstream of it over the last 30 years. And then, it shows it underwater. You will find pictures where it shows it underwater there. And we should be doing something to fix it or make it better. And we really can't stand to do anything that's going to make it worse.
Points well taken.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ben Lawwill.
Ben, okay.
Howdy. How y'all doing? My name is Ben. I wrote this down because I have a terrible memory. My name is Ben Lawwell, and I'm a resident of Richmond of over 20 years, and I currently reside in the Willimack subdivision off Barnes Mill. I'm here today to advocate for the rezoning of the 210-acre development from agricultural to R1C and R2 zoning. With 9 years of experience in the real estate industry and over $70 million worth of real estate sold, I do have a deep understanding of our community's housing needs. As a proud member of KW Legacy, currently ranked #1 in Central Kentucky, I recognize the importance of creating spaces that meet the diverse needs of our residents, as my brokerage sells 1 and 4 homes in Madison County. This proposal is not merely about the land use, it's a crucial step towards addressing our community's pressing need for affordable housing. This development is designed to include 455 residential units, homes priced between 200 and low 300s. The average home in Richmond sells for 270. The price range is vital for many families and individuals seeking a place to call home and can significantly alleviate the housing crisis our residents are facing in today's market. One key aspect of making housing affordable is the size of the lots we build on. Developing on 1 to 5 acre lots, as I've heard many of you say, makes affordable housing virtually impossible, as larger lots lead to higher property costs. In Richmond, the average 1 acre lot sells close to $70,000. Times that by 5, you get $350,000. I've heard many people say, why not just build on 5 acre lots? Add the cost of housing and you're easily over $500,000. This is simply just not affordable. By rezoning to R1C and R2, we can keep housing within reach for the majority of the families and individuals in our community. I also want to address the concern raised by local residents about home values. There's a common misconception that new residential development will decrease the value of surrounding homes. In reality, new residential development often increases the value of existing homes in the area. More residents can lead to improved local amenities and a stronger community, ultimately benefiting everyone. To add, once upon a time, most of you bought a new home in a new development backing up to a farm that someone somewhere was upset about. Example, the Woods, Old Town Estates, Deacon Hills, all the good stuff. Richmond, Kentucky is one of the fastest growing cities in the state, with a population increase of almost 10% since 2020. Even with other residential developments, most of which are focused on rental units rather than the affordable housing for sale, there remains a critical need for housing options that allow families to build equity and establish roots in our community. The proposed development aligns seamlessly with the city's comprehensive plan, which envisions this area as residential. By transitioning this land to residential use, we will create vibrant neighborhoods where families can thrive. Importantly, without residential development, we won't attract the commercial growth necessary for our community. New restaurants like Drake's, which we're already getting, new stores, hopefully a Target, my wife hopes, and job opportunities all depend on a growing residential base. The presence of new residents will drive demand for local businesses, leading to a more vibrant economy and a broader range of services for everyone. I do understand that change can raise concerns, but I assure you that we are committed to thoughtful planning that prioritizes environmental sustainability and community needs. We will incorporate green spaces, walking paths, and other amenities to foster a sense of community and enhance the area's appeal. As a real estate professional for nearly a decade, I made it a point to align my business with the right people. I have known the team at Lone Tree for several years now, and I can honestly say they do have caring minds and serving hearts. Their mission is simply to help address our city's housing crisis, ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to share in the American dream of homeownership. To give a little insight, and this number was shared earlier, our country is currently having a housing shortage of 4.5 million homes nationwide. In conclusion, I urge you to consider the broader benefits of this rezoning. By supporting this proposal, you will be taking a significant step towards addressing the housing shortage in our community of Richmond, enhancing economic growth, and bringing our city's vision to fruition. Let's work together to create a future where everyone has access to affordable housing and the American dream. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor Steve Vesio has requested his time back.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioners, and Mayor, and I haven't been reprimanded since I was a kid. Anyway, we used to be able to yield back in the day. I don't know why that's changed. Maybe it's something y'all consider, because there were several people that wanted Debbie to speak for them, but that's just a thought. Anyway, so I'm not going to take the full 5 minutes, but I want to finish what she did because she put so much work into this, and she didn't get to finish. So, but understand the time limit. I want to be clear on the time study that present traffic right now on Barnes Mill Road, this is according to the state, not some time study person that's hired out, but the Goggins Lane to Barnes Mill is 7,500 cars a day. And Barnes Mill to I-75 Bridge is 12,750. Now, the Vesio, we just deal with facts. This is something that comes from the state. This is not something made up. Just wanted to convey that to y'all. One thing I found funny about the traffic study that wasn't mentioned, or I don't think it was mentioned, was I believe it was done in June. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So that's really convenient because, the schools are out and people are traveling outside of the city. Actually, Eastern's out too. So actually, I don't blame them. That's pretty smart. That's actually pretty smart. But if a time study is going to be done correctly, and I do know a little bit about time studies, from a manufacturing standpoint, you should take the peak, you should take what they did the lowest time, and at least get an average. So I think that was really not forthcoming, and I think it was misleading. Anyway, now somebody mentioned about, I'm not going to get into the affordable housing because you're right, whoever said that, it's 24, 25 times, I lost count. But one thing that people are forgetting at 200,000, and I've talked to bankers, I'm not going to mention the bank's names, I don't think that's appropriate. So at 250, and by the way, that was the starting, I want everybody to understand that, it's going to be 300 plus, right? And so you have to have a down payment, 20%, unless you buy mortgage insurance. That's not mentioned. So that's, just do the math. It's $20,000 down on a $200,000 house. So what's that, 40,000? 40,000, thank you. Where's the math person? Anyway, so I don't know too many people that can afford that. To be quite honest, maybe if you work in a factory, and that'd be great if we could get more factory jobs, higher paying jobs, so that people can actually afford a house. But I just wanted to bring that up. You got to put the down payment down unless you buy the mortgage insurance, and I can't remember what the interest rate on that is, but it's not low. With that being said, I'm going to skip through a couple of this things. I believe you remember they brought up the chart, Mr. Worley and the group, Lone Tree, y'all saw this chart on the table. We are presently not deficient in Madison County, and I want to be clear on that. That we are not deficient. The exact numbers are 4.8 on rental housing plus, not a minus. And then on homes it's 1.2 plus, not a minus. So the deficiency rates, if you look at Jefferson and Lexington, and that's where they need to be developing in Lexington because we're the runoff, by the way. That's why they're building houses because they won't let their county develop. They don't want any more traffic. So anyway, or if they are, it's very limited. But I want to point that out. We are not in a deficiency. I think it was just said that we do have a deficiency. This does not even include what you all have already approved. I want to be clear on that, and the ones getting built now. So that's very important. So we not only, this is just not included in these numbers. The last thing I want to say is, and I want to be very clear on this, they're asking for an R1C. That's 5.1 houses per an acre. The comprehensive, I hate to mention the comprehensive plan because these lawyers, it seems like when it cites something like this one does, it's agricultural, it's actually recommends for agricultural, you're not shackled to that. Go back to the planning meeting. But when it does reference something to development, hey, you got to pay attention to that comprehensive plan. That's just amazing how they pick and choose what they decide to use in their presentations. Anyway, R1C, 5.1, I don't want to get redundant here. When you all, if you all approve it, and we hope you don't, that's what it is. Debbie alluded to it. That is what it is. They can come up and promise you it's going to be 3.6, 3.4, and it sounds good, but once you approve it, and somebody correct me, it's allowing 5.1. That is the ordinance, that's the law. They can build wherever they want, and they can sell that tomorrow, and that next person doesn't have to go by that concept plan. And somebody jump in here, the lawyers or whatever, but just keep that in mind. That's what it is. And all good intent is great, doesn't mean they're going to do it. Oh, am I out of time? Okay. There is no road funding. I want to be clear on that. All the way up to 2028, there is no road funding. Debbie brought it up twice, hate to be redundant, but I want everybody to remember, if there's no funding, they don't build it. And that doesn't mean they're going to do it in 2029 or 2030. Let's deal with the facts and what's happening. All right, last thing, closing up, I don't know why, and I'm reading this because this is something Debbie wrote. Why would you approve or accept anything from this group? They already have property approved for R2 that they have not started, and now they're asking for more. They should complete what they've already had been approved for, and what's the hurry? They're talking 2035. What is the hurry? Y'all don't have to approve this. I mean, there must be a reason for that. I'd love to know, and I'm not going to speculate because I'm dealing with facts. Anyway, when I come to these meetings, the common theme I hear is we don't want to be another Lexington. I'm trying to go as fast as I can, Mayor, and I appreciate it. I know you already know this, y'all should, but I want to remind you, I know you already know what I'm getting ready to say. I want to remind you, you represent the people of Richmond. And I'm not being a smart aleck or nothing like that. And these people are here, people of Richmond here. You see these people here, and people that couldn't make it, should be your obligation and priority in the position you hold. You are not obligated to a real estate, investment company, or a developer and speculators. We're not obligated to them. Again, your obligation should be with the people, and I'm asking you to vote no on this, and thank you for your time.
That concludes the public comment portion.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let me say thanks to all of you who have contributed this evening. I mean that very sincerely. Well, I won't comment. Now, Madam Clerk, Mr. City Manager, well, Mr. Attorney, it's fine. The public comments period. Now, that is for other matters, or should we not do it at all?
No, that was for the hearing.
Just for the hearing. Or you're saying open it for public?
Yeah, that period, should it be open at this time, or should we just ignore it at this point because it has been a public comments period?
Yes, the public comments period is over.
All right, then. Where's Mr. City Manager? Oh, that's right, you requested rebuttal. I'm going to put you on the 5-minute clock then, please. Thank you, President.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, I object.
That was requested at the beginning. We will allow him to respond.
Thank you, Mayor.
5 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Or less.
A few briefly. What comments that just recently came that were inaccurate about the traffic study that need to be addressed? The traffic study was done in April between Tuesday and Thursday at peak hours. Those were when the counts were done, and they were consolidated with the state's own numbers. And Mr. Vesio was correct about the overall average use of Goggins, but the state actually says by 2040 that will be 4 times what it is now, and that is part of that traffic study and was part of the assumptions made in the traffic study. So I want to be clear that we all understand that all of that was taken into account. Moreover, the funding of the state highway traffic improvements, they keep referencing a 22 to 28 plan. Recently, there was a 24 to 30 plan put out by the state, which has the $1.75 million for the design of the first part of the Goggins piece. So again, that is part and parcel of all this. Now, it was said, do we have assurances that KYTC will do these things? No, we don't. No, we don't. First and foremost, we do have high probability based on their published plan, and we have Planning Commission safeguards in place that no phase of this project can move forward unless the Planning Commission is satisfied that it addresses all the technical aspects, including traffic. So again, this is zone change. We bring all that to you by way of saying those concerns can be mitigated, they can be addressed at the appropriate stage. So then, to bring in a few other things, they were talking about the density, and is this truly a density loss? So Mr. Vesio's right, 5.1 units per gross acre is what's allowed in the R1C and the R2 zone. That being said, we have put on the record, both at the Planning Commission and here, a voluntary zone density cap of 455 units. No more than that. That is on the record. The Planning Commission knows that no planning development plan will be presented that is different than that. And we have made arrangements with your planning staff and your attorney that if this is approved, we will appropriately document that. And so I'll put you on the record. That is given by this developer, 100%. So the last I would say is, again, this is a zone change phase. Is single-family detached and single-family attached an appropriate use in this community for this property? That's the only question here today. What would make you wonder, are we ready for that or not, are the concerns that have been raised, and each and every one of them. Water retention, that's handled at the construction plans phase and the development plan phase. So you got development plan, then even construction drawings that go to your staff. That's that phase. Can they handle the traffic? Do we like the way the roads are designed? That's the development plan stage. That's the Planning Commission's purview. Your ask here tonight is single-family housing appropriate at this zone. Your comprehensive plan calls for it in many different aspects, and providing affordable housing for all aspects of our community, diversity of housing, and another one that I didn't bring up, Goal 6, future growth where infrastructure and amenities exist. Infrastructure and amenities come to this property. The city, when they annexed this property and developed Hampton Way, have put infrastructure and amenities going to this property because they intended for this to be developed. And so I know that folks out in the county, in this part of the county, and in West Richmond are feeling the heat because a lot of development has been there. And a lot of these folks have opposed the Arlington Ayers property, Bill Short's property, our own park. But it's because there's a lot moving out their way. The city designed it that way over years and years of comprehensive plans. This is where our development was intended to go. And so I hear, for who? Why, who are these who are these for? Why not just the people who live here? Richmond is a growing community. It has been since the late 60s when it got to second interstate exchange, particularly in the 70s moving forward when my family came here. Richmond is a growing community because of EKU, a wonderful education institute that brings students every day that want to stay here, adopt this community, people who grew up here that want to stay at home, people in Estill, Powell, Owsley that have come here because there's business here, there's jobs here. Richmond is a hub for East Kentucky and Southeast Kentucky and a great home for those who want to live here. And so we have to make accommodations for that. We have to make arrangements for that. And where can you do it? At an affordable housing price point. So I ask you to take that all into consideration. The worries, the concerns, they've been thought through and they can be addressed through the right processes. For today, this zone change is exactly what you all have been asking for. Exactly. So we'd ask for your approval, and we thank you so, so much for all your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
5 minutes.
All right, Mr. City Manager, do you wish to report at this time? He's coming around. All right. Okay. Commissioner Goebel, anything at this time?
I'm good, thanks.
All righty. Commissioner Newby,
Are we reporting on this evening, or was this our business?
whatever,
Are we reporting on what we heard tonight?
whatever you choose,
What
sir.
we heard tonight?
I never restrict this time, so
Okay,
whatever you.
all right. Well, I'm going to speak a little bit. It's probably redundant to the commissioner because you've probably heard the same spiel over and over and over again. But I've been the lone no vote on every single project that involves apartments, duplexes in the Goggins Lane, Tage Creek, and Barnes Mill area. And we've got all this stuff coming, but I'm just going to focus on Barnes Mill because this is what your thing is hitting the most. I think 45 years ago, when the state came through and they took, Barnes Mill used to be really small, made it really wide. So now the house is right there probably in front of White Oak. They can pretty much spit on the road right now. What are we going to do with that area? Certain times of day, now that traffic is getting more, it's increasing more and more. Traffic is backed up sometimes all the way to the stadium. You got 2 exit ramps in the interstate feeding. Sometimes, especially in the morning, maybe in the evenings, somebody turning left off of Barnes Mill onto Goggins backs up traffic to Curtis Pike. So now, with this proposal, we're proposing, we have another exit from Old Town Branch. Old Town Branch is like a 1-lane road with 1 car going through a tunnel at one time. So folks, I'm all about growth, but not when that growth takes a dump on what's already there. I'm all for affordable housing, but I'm not for any housing that takes a dump on what's already there. And, you know, these things, I hear these, like tonight, you hear one side of the people that have to live there, and then you hear the other side. You know, the other side, everybody speaking on the other side is making some money one way, form, or fashion. It's common sense, folks. That's all I got to say.
Commissioner Brewer?
I don't have anything.
All right, Commissioner Cole?
Yes, I just would like to provide a little bit of clarification. I think I've been on the commission over a little bit over a year and a half now, and this is probably, I think I can safely say that I've received more input from members of Madison County, Richmond, however you want to define it, with this issue. So I've talked to a lot of people. I try to answer my phone or call people back, try to read every single email that we get, and there were a lot. And as I talked to people, there was also a little bit of confusion that I've tried to research myself and tried to provide a little bit of clarification on, but I want to just make sure that we're crystal clear in terms of what we're talking about tonight, and I may need the city manager or city attorney to help me. But as I talked to people on the phone, a lot of people were thinking that we were also that we were looking at that existing parcel that we talked about that's a little bit closer to Castlewood, and kind of blending that with the new parcel that we were looking at tonight. It's my understanding that tonight's conversation has been about the new parcel and not about that existing parcel that was previously owned and zoned by this commission. So I'm not second guessing anything that's been done before, because I told you I've only been off here a little over a year and a half, but that's already been done. And so tonight's conversation really isn't focused on that. So a lot of people that I talked to were putting the two together or under the impression that we could address that original parcel tonight. So again, I hope I said that correctly, and city attorney, if I didn't, please correct me. But tonight's conversation was not about what had already been brought into the city and previously zoned.
That's correct.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that. And the second thing that I want to say, and again, I hope I can say this the right way, but I am sorry that concerned citizens are having to relive this again. I'm a big believer of the process and the bureaucracy and the documentation, and so I'm sorry that our Planning and Zoning Commission wasn't able to reach an agreement. I know that it was very intense, and I know that they have their reasons. I totally respect that. But from your viewpoint, from a citizen standpoint, you probably have had to relive this twice. And so that's the first time that this has happened, again, since I've been on the commission. So I'm sorry that you all have had to relive it twice. We will proceed, we have a plan B, and we're very competent and able to do that plan B. But this is an emotional topic for a lot of people, and so I'm sorry that it has taken, longer to do that than it normally probably would have. I think that's all I want to say. The only other thing is just there was some comments about, do we understand that we represent the people of Richmond? I want everyone to know that I read every email, I take these decisions serious, and that I'm very, very aware and feel the pressure, to make sure that we make the best decision that we can. That's all, Mayor.
All hearts and minds clear? We'll entertain a motion then to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please.
Commissioner Brewer?
Yes.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes.
Commissioner Goble?
Yes.
Commissioner Newby?
Yes.
Mayor Blythe?
Yes, thank you. Thanks to all of you again. One of the other things.